Thank you for clicking on this video, and today what I'm going to share with you is the introduction to Material Buttons 2.0. As you can see over here, there are three buttons that appeared, which is the outlined button, the text button, and the elevated button. So there is a couple of questions I'm going to answer is, what is material? What are the new buttons? How do I use them? Flutter theming and benefits. And lastly, will the old buttons be deprecated? So let's get started with the first question. What is material? So material is basically, according to the random philosopher, is matter from which a thing is or can be made. So jokes aside, a better question is, what are material buttons? So you might have used buttons in Flutter, but they are actually material buttons. So what are these material buttons? Well, they are buttons that are styled according to material design. So then you might have another question, which is, what is material design? So material design is a design system that's created by Google to help teams build high quality digital experience for Android, iOS, Flutter, and the web. So why do you need this design system anyway? Well, it gives you a consistent design and user experience in the app. So on the right side, you see there are different widgets that you might have used. For example, an app bar, a snack bar, or even a floating action button. So these designs give a consistent user experience throughout the app. And as developers, we want to focus more on the features or creating code rather than thinking about how you want to create a simple button. So you could say that there is no need of building widgets from scratch. So the next question is, what are the new material buttons? So I'm going to show you a visual comparison on the old and the new ones. Well, you might be thinking the new ones are the colors default to be purple. Not exactly. So the difference between the old one and the new one is that if the theme of the app is purple in color, for the old material buttons, it does not inherit the theme color. While the new one, if the app theme color is purple, then the new buttons actually inherits the color. So why the update? Well, this is because if you want to set your buttons according to the theme colors, it will get ignored. So this is a little bit frustrating because you want to have certain buttons to follow a certain design system that you have. That's why the objective of this update is that it is to make it easier for you to change the individual material button theme, and at the same time, changing the text color through the theme should be easy. And lastly, changing the text color when hovered, for example, should not be a little bit impossible through the theming. So then you might be excited, I want to use the new buttons. So how do I use the new button? So according to a company that I can't disclose, just use it. Well, jokes aside, I'm going to share with you on how you're going to use the new buttons. So for this demo, I'm going to show you on how you're going to use the new text button. So the old version is the flat button. So first of all, to create the new button, you have to use the text button. So the old button is flat button. Then if I want to change my background color to blue, for the flat button, we will just pass in the colors.blue through the color parameter. For the new text button, we will use this thing called the button style, and then we will pass in a button style object. And inside this button style object, you have the background color. And inside this background color, you will have to pass in this material state property.all, and then we will pass in this colors.blue. So I'm going to explain to you what this new button style and material state property is. So let me share with you what button style is. So you can think of a button style as a text style for your text widget. So it's the same thing with your button widgets. So you could say that it is a simple container for the properties that most buttons have in common. So what about material state property? So it is an interface that resolves a value on the widget's interactive state. So interactive states includes when it's hovered or focused or pressed. And a simple summary that I will give is you could think of it as it gives a conditional statement that returns you the value that you need. So when it is hovered, then you want to have a different color. When it's focused, you want to have a different mouse cursor. Or when you pressed it, you want to have a different color for your border. So let me give you a simple demo on how to use this material state property. So I have a simple demo on how you can style your text button and do a little comparison with the old flat button. So if I want to have my background color to be blue, I'll probably have to pass in the colors.blue through the color parameter. But for the new text button, inside our button style, what I will have to do is pass in this background color parameter and this material state property .all. So the .all method from material state property basically says that we should just give a single value for any state. So we can just pass in just one value, which is the colors blue. And if you were to save this, it will look something like this. For the old flat button, you could see that the background is blue color, while the new text button over here has its background color blue. But what if you want to change the hover color, the splash color, and the focus color? So let's do that. So for the old button, we are going to use this focus color, hover color, and splash color. And then we're going to do the red, green, and blue. But for the new button, instead of just putting the different parameters, we're going to put in this parameter that is called overlay color. So this overlay color is basically the highlights color that indicates the button whether it is focused, hovered, or pressed. And then it requires the material state property, and we're going to use this .resolve with method. Basically, it gives us a list or a set of material states. Then we need to use this if statement to say that if the state contains the material state.focused enum, then we will return a certain color. So when it's focused, I want it to have a color red. If it's hovered, I want to have a color green. And then if it's pressed, I want to have it a color, a lightest shade of blue. Otherwise, we will return null as it differs to the widget's default. Now, if you were to save this, let's see how it looks like. Now, for those who don't know what is focused, focused means that we just press the tab button and this selects or focused one of our UI components. So for the old flat button, the focus color is red. And then if you were to hover it, it will be green. And then if you were to press it, it will be blue. Exactly what we want. But for the new text button over here, if I were to press the tab over here, its focus color is red, which is what we want. The hovered color is green. And then if we were to press it, you could see that the color is now the lightest blue. So you might be thinking this is a lot of work to just put in the different colors when you have the different material states. Is there any easier way to style the buttons? Yes, there is. So I'm going to use the demo for the outline buttons to share on how you can style the new buttons. So the old outline button over here, if you want to give a certain color, you could see that you can just pass in accordingly. But for the new button, you will still use the button style parameter, but for each individual new buttons, there is this method that is called style from. It then has different properties that looks pretty similar, like for example, your primary color, your shape, and then you can also add in your border side property. So this gives the specific button style for your different buttons. So the style from method is a convenience method that constructs a button style given simple values. So for the different buttons, you have a specific button style. So then what is the difference between the button style object and the style from method? Well, the button style object, you could say it gives an unclear way to configure the button styling if you are new to it. However, it gives you a granular control on how any interaction should be shown. As you can see, you can add a lot of different if statements for the different material state property. But for most of us, if we do not really care about different granular controls, then we will probably use the style from method, where it gives you a clearer way to configure your button styling, and also it gives enough control on how any interaction should be shown. So you can just put a value into the style from method and it will compute for you the colors that will be interacted. For example, if you were to add the text button dot style from method, and then if you were to add in a primary color blue, you could see that inside our text button, our text over here is in blue, and then when we hover over it, there is a blue tinge or a slight blue color, and then if you were to press on it, you could see that the inkwell color is also blue, and we can change it to another color, for example red, and it also does the same. So this helps you compute the different colors when it is hovered, when it is focused, and when it is on pressed. So now you know how you can style the new material buttons. Is there a way for us to share the style throughout the app? So the answer is yes. We are going to share it through themes. And theming is basically a way for you to share your consistent design or colors throughout the app. So why should you care about theming? Well, for designers, they have this thing called a design system where they give you the primary and secondary colors for you to implement inside a project or web app or a mobile app so that it gives a consistent design. So theming then allows you to share your typography, primary and accent, or you could say secondary colors and styles across the whole app. And the advantage of using theming is that you don't have to recreate a style from scratch for your widgets because it is shared across your app. It saves time, and if you were to work with your designer, it is actually consistent with your designer's design system. And lastly, you can do changes without going through every single file. So if you were to create a new button theme the old way through the button theme over here, it will look something like this. So then you will add your different properties. For example, I want my flat button to have a button color blue, and then maybe I want to expand it by adding some padding horizontally. But the problem is that this button theme will be the same for all of the 3 different types of buttons, which is the raised button, flat button, and the outline button. However, is there a way for us to separate the button themes according to each button? So yes, there is. Well, we are going to make use of the new buttons, which is the elevated button, text button, and the outlined button. So the old way is you're going to pass in a button theme data through the button theme parameter, but the new way is you have 3 different button themes. So you will have the text button theme, you have the elevator button theme, and you have the outlined button theme. So let's go through briefly on how you can style them. So for example, the text button over here, you want to make it look like a simple text that is clickable by just changing its color and having no or transparent background. And then for the elevated button, you want to make it a little bit more red and it looks a little bit more like a pill. And lastly, for the outlined button, you want to make it a little bit more edgy and have it a yellow color and a different text style. So this is possible using the new button theme for your material buttons. So now with these new changes, you might be asking, will these old buttons be deprecated? Yes. And then you might be asking, when will it be? So the new material buttons was released in July 2020. So according to the deprecation policy of Flutter, it might take you 1 calendar year after being released on stable to be deprecated, or after 4 stable releases, whichever is longer. So in a sense, it is expected to be deprecated at least 1 year after July 2020 plus plus. So that's all for this video. If you have any question, leave in the comments down below if there's any. So all the best in your Flutter journey. Bye bye.